Hi everyone, today I'm here with my January wrap up and I've got 6 books here to get through, and I'm going to start at the very bottom of the star rating and work up to the ones that are 5-star reads. So the first book that I'm going to mention is this one, which is The Ship by Antonia Honeywell. I think on Amazon this book gets a good solid 4 out of 5 stars, and it was recommended to me by Amazon in my recommended reads. And I had high hopes because it sounded really interesting. The premise is that there is a young girl and it's a futuristic sort of dystopian novel. London, she's from London, and there's been a big worldwide sort of global disaster. Things have stopped growing, the soil stopped producing fruits and vegetables, everyone's dying. The government has took over and put a scheme in place where if you don't have an identity card, you don't exist, and only people with identity cards can get food and things like that. But her dad, Michael, has built a huge ship and has got an escape lined up for everyone, and so she's got to go on the ship, and the story is to find out what Michael's actual motive is. I just personally found this such a boring read. I found the characters to be so unbelievable and irritating. There wasn't one character that I actually liked in this book. I found everybody to be a little bit nonsensical, and just their thought patterns just didn't really make sense, and the way people were behaving just didn't make sense. And I mean, it's not that I'm not familiar with the genre, because I know that in dystopian novels people often behave in ways that we wouldn't exactly expect, but with this one I found it depressing. Just some apologies about the noise if you keep hearing chainsawing. I've got a neighbour who's outside cutting some wood. There's nothing I can do about him, so I apologise. But after I finished reading this, I really felt like running into the road and jumping in front of the nearest truck that came by. It was just so depressing, and just there was nothing about this that I liked. So yeah, I mean, some people must have loved this because it has got some really good reviews on Amazon, but for me, no, it was a 1-star. Next up, we've got Bloody Scotland by Malcolm Archibald. This is just a history book based in 19th century Scotland, and it's got loads of things about the crime that went on in Scotland at the time. So you've got things like body snatchers and murders, that sort of thing. I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it, so this is a 3-star read for me. Next up, I read now Lifeguard On Duty by Janice Dickinson. If you've watched some of my earlier videos, you'll know that I read Everything About Me Is Fake and I'm Perfect by Janice Dickinson, which is a second book, a follow-up to this one, and I really loved that one. So I thought I'd give this a go, and I picked up a second-hand copy on eBay, so it is really tatty and not the best condition. If you're looking for a tell-all, this is definitely the one for you. She absolutely holds nothing back. Some of it can be quite shocking to read. Some of it's really awful. She touches on the child abuse that she suffered from her dad as she was growing up, and that's really awful. And then she goes on to talk about her relationships with some really famous men, and she literally doesn't keep anything hidden. So it's an entertaining read, but it can be quite hard to stomach sometimes because of the gritty sort of language that is used, and some of the really graphic depictions that are in this. But that being said, I gave it a good sort of, I would have put it at between a 3 and a 4-star read. It wasn't as good as a second book, but I still enjoyed reading it. If you're into non-fiction and you don't like the traditional sort of celebrity autobiography, because those sort of books I'm not really into. I don't find it very interesting just reading someone's normal life about how they've just got rich and famous. If you're into something that's a little bit more gritty, a little bit more shocking, I would say this is definitely one to pick up. And Janice Dickinson does come across really harsh, really brash, but it works. So yeah, that's a 3-star read. And then the next 3 books that I've got are 5-star reads. So I'm just going to start with the first one that I read, which was In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. This is a story about a girl who was born in North Korea, and she eventually escapes from North Korea, and it's the story of her journey and what she suffers along the way. I've actually done a blog post on this book because I think this is, if you're going to read one book this year, this should be the one that you read. It's educational as well as shocking, and it's unbelievable how humanity can actually be. I mean, on the back it says, I wasn't dreaming of freedom when I escaped from North Korea. I didn't even know what it meant to be free. All I knew is that if my family stayed behind, we would probably die from starvation, from disease, from the inhumane conditions of a prison labour camp. The hunger had become unbearable, and I was willing to risk my life for the promise of a bowl of rice. But there was more to our journey than our own survival. My mother and I were searching for my oldest sister, who had left for China a few days earlier and had not been heard from since. Along my journey, I've seen the horrors that humans can inflict on one another, and I've also witnessed acts of tenderness and kindness and sacrifice in the worst imaginable circumstances. I know that it's possible to lose part of your humanity in order to survive, but I also know that the spark of human dignity is never completely extinguished. And given the oxygen of freedom and the power of love, it can grow again. This is my story of the choices I made in order to live. After reading this, I found that I'm really quite interested to know a bit more about North Korea, and there are other survivor stories out there that I'm going to be looking into buying soon. I just found the circumstances that she was put into so far removed from anything that I've ever known myself, and obviously from the lives of my friends and families. It's never been something that we've really known a lot about. And North Korea is quite shrouded in mystery. People don't actually know a lot about it. So I did find this really interesting, and it was a definite 5-star read. Next up, I've got Stranger Child by Rachel Abbott. I really loved the last book that I read from her, which was called Sleep Tight, and so that made me want to pick up more books from her. So I picked up Stranger Child this time, not realising that the two stories actually interlink, because the lead detective in Sleep Tight is actually in Stranger Child as well, and his story progresses in Stranger Child. So I'm pretty sure that I've picked up the books in the wrong order, because in this one now I know the twist in the detective's tale, and I'm sure he's in another book that I haven't read. So I'll know his twist, but I won't know the twist of the murder or whatever they're investigating in the other book that I need to pick up. But Stranger Child was really, really good. So the basic premise of this is that there's Emma, who has married her husband David, but David had been married before and his wife was killed in a car accident, and their 6-year-old daughter went missing at the time. So this is flash forward a few years time, and David is now married to Emma, and they've got their own child, and their life is thrown upside down when a stranger walks into their life. And with the lead detective in this, they start to unravel sort of this web of deceit and lies, and that ends up leaving Emma completely shocked and horrified. And that's not a spoiler, it's pretty much what's on the back. So this was really, really good. The suspense in this was absolutely unreal. Like, I was just sat on the edge of my seat constantly all the way through, flicking the pages, just couldn't wait to read what was coming next. So I'm definitely going to buy more Rachel Abbott books, and I really think that she could actually have started taking the top place as one of my favourite authors, because she just does suspense so well. And she's also obviously really put her research into police procedures. When they look into the police intelligence and when they talk about the police protocol and everything that they do, it comes across so believable, because it's really, really well written, really clever, and I love this. Another 5-star read from Rachel Abbott. Finally, the last book that I read this month was Illuminate. This has obviously done the rounds on BookTube quite a lot. I actually did this as my first ever buddy read with Eleanor Reads Books. I'll link her channel down below. And she was loving this just as much as I was at the time, and we were voice messaging each other over Voxer, and we were both reaching points where we were both extremely excited and couldn't wait to find out what was going to happen next. It's not the usual genre that I go for. I haven't actually read a lot of sci-fi, and as you probably all know, the way that this is set up is all through chat manuscripts and different reports. The pages are different colours. You've got some pages that have just got a couple of words on them, like that one. It's sort of black, and then it's got a couple of words going over, and just the way that this builds up an image of the world that these people are in is incredible, and the way that the story plays out is really, really clever. And it was definitely a massive page turner, and as you're nearing the end, you're just desperate to find out what's going to happen next. You really get into the characters, and they're really believable. So I did go into this with high expectations, and I was a little bit worried, because sometimes when a book's overly hyped, it's usually not quite as good when you actually read it. But I really, really loved it, and it is a 5 out of 5 for me. So that's my January wrap up. Thank you for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!